Welcome back to Between Bells. The Minnesota Freedom Fund is bailing out protesters who have been arrested. The nonprofit group has seen an outpouring of support and raised $20 million in just 4 days following the death of George Floyd. Joining me now is Steve Boland, a board member for the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Great to have you with me here today. $20 million in 4 days is no joke. Congratulations on that. But explain how these funds are being deployed and how you think that attention came so quickly.
Well, the money is right now being used to bail out protesters with amounts of as little as $100 to as much as $75,000 in bail being requested. We are learning more all the time as people are arraigned about how much bail will be set for them and what charges are. So those numbers are coming in, even as we speak. But that's our first call, is to use those resources to get people out of pretrial incarceration.
And there are obviously so many layers of need in Minnesota and across the country, protecting the protesters, but also helping to rebuild some of those immigrant-owned communities, like on Lake Street, for example. What is this decision-making process in your organization on which ones to link up with, which causes to link up with?
Our mission at the Minnesota Freedom Fund is the elimination of the cash bail system in our state, that the system itself is inherently racist, that it is not implemented in any meaningful way that could be called justice. The amount of money you have should not determine the amount of justice you're able to get. So our work is really focused on the elimination of that pretrial detention and those costs that are associated. Many of our partners are on the ground doing business reconstruction, talking about other police reforms or the elimination of policing as we know it. Lots of other people, but our work is really focused on making sure that no one is held by bail just because of their financial circumstances.
And Steve, you're also a managing partner of Next in Nonprofits, a consulting firm for nonprofit growth. There are countless distribution platforms right now, like social media, that help to amplify causes. What have you found that works really well recently?
Well, we actually did not start an intentional campaign as a result of the George Floyd murder here in Minneapolis. Other people that were seeking ways to be engaged in changing these systems found us and started talking about it. Twitter has been our biggest amplification mechanism, but it has been happening by email, by text, other mechanisms, and by folks that have large audiences. We've been very fortunate that a number of celebrities and other thought leaders have been sharing, if you need to be engaged in doing something right now, make sure at least the protesters can get out of jail. Let's start with that part. So we're amazed at the number of people that come in through PayPal, that have come in through GiveMN, a local giving platform, all those types of pieces to help be part of the solution.
And not just during this time, but I think a lot of people have for years tried to figure out what causes to donate to, how much to donate. A lot of people kind of wondering what is the best strategy for effective giving. So how can you make sure your efforts have the most impact when it seems like there's a lot of choices out there?
Yeah, right now the thing that I'm urging everybody to do is to, if you get a request from somebody saying, hey, this charity needs help, check in with them first and see where things are at. We at the Minnesota Freedom Fund have actually been asking people to consider donations to partner organizations because the flood of responses from across the world, hundreds of thousands of donors, has been amazing. But we want to make sure that people are informed that if you want to make an impact on the streets here in the Minneapolis area, we probably have the resources we need to bail out the folks that are protesting today. But there's many others that don't. So if you go to our website, you'll see, please consider another source before you come here. And I think checking in directly with the charity before necessarily making a contribution to be sure they still need that help, or if they're asking for other partners to be considered instead, is the best way to make sure that your money is used most effectively.
That is such a good point, making sure people aren't just kind of passively donating. I really like that advice. But I think a lot of people are thinking about activism for the first time right now in this moment for our nation. What's the best way to keep activism on racial injustices top of mind for people who don't personally suffer from it after these big national moments like the one we're in right now?
I think so many people came to us from across the world because they weren't sure how to get started, and making a small donation seemed like a very easy first start. So sure, absolutely, if you've got the ability to contribute to others that are doing work, do that. But then stay involved with them. Don't give anonymously. Give your address, your name. Find out what the next steps are. In the case of the elimination of cash bail, we're going to need advocates across the country to talk to their state legislators, to talk to county prosecutors, to be engaged engaged as advocates that way. Getting out and getting visible on the streets is also really making a difference right now. You don't have to be violating curfew or getting arrested, but there's a lot of peaceful ways to be showing force of numbers in many, many places across the country and across the world. And if you're able to get out and do that, it's making a huge difference. Do it.
Steve, thank you so much for your actionable advice and for your time today. That's Steve Boland, a board member for the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Thank you again.